So I just want to say thank you everyone to come into this webinar. It's about our 2021 Technology Leadership Survey. My name is Joe Nemer. I'm on Cloud Academy's marketing team, and I'm also going to be co-hosting this with Mark Smith, who's the Director of Sales Engineering. He's going to give a lot of his insights into what your colleagues or what your peers have said for the survey. So why don't we just jump in?
Thanks, Joe. Good to be here, man.
Yeah, good to have you. So basically, here's the agenda. First of all, we'll give you a quick survey background, tell you how we did it, why we did it. We'll go over our actual questions and results, and we're also going to have a live polling feature, so you'll be able to answer the questions as well, and you can see how your responses are different, or maybe the same as your peers. We'll move on to, in part 3, what are the takeaways from for your organization, and then we'll also definitely have a Q&A session at the end. So be sure at any time during this, you can just put in some questions into your chat, and we will have those on a set aside, and we can take care of those at the end. So survey background. Let's just jump in. Basically, we thought this survey was a good way so that we could keep up with industry trends. Kind of setting the stage for all this is just the whole background of what's going on in tech. About the skills gap, it's been known about for a while now, and cloud just increasing over. Of course, it's been increasing the market share over year over year, but still there's still a huge market share to be gained. And things have changed, as is the cliche, over the whole course of the pandemic, but really it's been one of those big forcing functions for getting people to kind of move quickly. And as we see, one of the main things with these changes is just getting qualified tech talent to help enact all these changes.
Yeah, and Joe, one thing about this, and I always like to reflect a bit. So I've been in the IT training space for the better part of almost 10 years now, and I can remember as cloud was really starting to be adopted, some of the stigmas that went along with it, people not wanting, especially in financial, not wanting to move to the public cloud because of security. A lot of those different stigmas that are now not a thing, but just seeing that evolution over time has been really extremely just insightful to kind of look at how it's going, all the benefits that are they're saving by moving to the cloud. And then you couple that with some of the things that we've seen with the pandemic and how that opened the eyes. It's been great as far as looking at the use cases for cloud with our customers and seeing how that has helped sustain them throughout a difficult time. So I'm super happy to see businesses, our customers out there that have continued to thrive amongst difficult conditions, and cloud has certainly enabled that. And the survey, I think, is really indicative of kind of seeing some of those results.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on. So quick overview. We'll get into these actual details deeper in our next slides. But some of the background of how we did this. It was so I was involved in the creating of the survey along with our content manager. We targeted specifically enterprises and organizations, typically larger ones, and people whose job roles were going to be were managers and above. So you'd say managers, directors, VPs, and some C levels. We thought it was helpful to get their insight into after a first quarter of the year, so that all this happened during around April to May of this year. And we want to see, okay, now that the first quarter of the year is done, what do you think you're going to do for the rest of the year, and really moving forward as well. You can see right here on the screen some of our highlights about how people think they may invest more, different ways they're going to invest, specifically regarding tech skills and how that fits into their own infrastructure, whether it's hybrid or not. And it's all really interesting stuff that now we can kind of jump more deeply into. And so basically what we're going to do now is we're going to tackle each of the main questions one by one. We're going to give you an opportunity to actually answer a pop-up poll for each question. So, survey question number one: what type of infrastructure do you personally use at your organization for your IT? You guys can just answer that for a little bit. This is all live and unplanned, so it'll be cool to see what the results are. All right, so let's go over your results. We got the highest, kind of close, but the highest was hybrid cloud, and at 45% of our webinars attendees, and one cloud only, 36%, with multi-cloud and on-prem being the same. Pretty interesting. So obviously, our survey results were the same as far as hybrid cloud being the main leader. But it was kind of a different spread. I would say what we definitely saw was not, at least with our survey respondees, there was not much on-prem usage. I think it was just over 2% of people work with just on-prem, which makes sense because we're kind of strong in the cloud and software space. And the multi-cloud people who are, was going to be around 17%, but with our with our live poll, I think that was closer to 35. Oh no, that was number two was
30,
one cloud
yeah,
only.
30, yeah, 36% on the one cloud provider only. It's pretty cool, by the way, to see the live results coming in. I appreciate everyone jumping on those. I think kind of in taking a look at both of those, hybrid cloud is definitely something that we're hearing in the organizations that we're working with. The multi-cloud approach is definitely becoming more dominant in conversations. So it's interesting to see the one cloud provider only. And I have talked with several of our customers who are doing that. But with what they're looking at now is actually moving to more multi-cloud for some of those reasons, right? Not getting into the vendor lock-in, a little bit easier to scale, maybe having some different applications across, different internal applications on a different, cloud provider, external applications on another for various reasons. So just a little more scalability. So yeah, it's pretty insightful to see where people are at now and kind of where they're going to be moving in the future. But yeah, this is all good stuff for sure.
Mark, in your experience, like, not to totally put you on the spot, but have you found certain types? Do you see any types of customers in particular who tend to be more multi-cloud? Like, is it by size or by particular type of organization?
That's a really good question. And, there are, some of the smaller organizations, being one cloud provider, definitely seen some of those, but you've also seen more smaller organizations that are multi-cloud. I think in the finance and healthcare verticals, we've seen multi-cloud really dominate across those. Those have been a couple that I can recall right now that I know have been really, really dominant when it comes to adopting the multi-cloud strategy. I think it's going to continue to be an uptrend. Like doing the same survey a year from now, I'd probably expect to see that 17%. I would say at least doubled, if not more, if we did and revisit it back the next year. But yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and it's interesting that, so, I mean, I guess you were saying like you've seen a lot of in the kind of healthcare and spaces like that do some more of the hybrid. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because you're talking a lot more about the data side of things and
Yeah.
there's just a lot that goes into it, and so they're really looking to adopt multi-cloud, especially for data manipulation and pulling that in. We were just speaking with someone Friday of last week that was looking to take more on the data analysis on just their, their mobile applications and how that's coming across to be able to make changes quickly too. So a lot of interesting use cases for sure.
Yeah, I would guess like something like in the healthcare industry, there's a lot of privacy issues or
Yep.
concerns too. And then if you have your own kind of private cloud, then that really kind of helps with that. But on the flip side, the big providers are working on coming up with strong ways to help address those sort of compliance needs as well. But it's just also being developed.
Yeah, and I mean, and to their credit, the AWSs and Microsoft and Google have done like a significant job of building in security within the architecture as well. Some great services that are out there to build them, and it's been pretty awesome to watch how organizations are going into it and using building up the talent, the tech skills, and then making decisions on how they're doing and putting their architecture together based on what people are learning as well. So they're going in and making educated decisions on the right services and how to scale up and down. It's pretty cool to see that. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that later on, but
Yeah.
for sure, those are some of those use cases.
Okay, great. So with that in mind, let's move on to the next question. So survey question number 2. Again, you guys will get a pop-up. How much do you predict you'll invest in cloud infrastructure during 2021 compared to last year? You're going to be spending more or less, basically. All right, results are trickling in. Looks like they've stabilized. So we've got pretty overwhelmingly 75% of people say they're going to be spending more in cloud compared to 25%. So it's a 75-25 split. Let's look at our results. Ours was even more drastic, nearly unanimous. Everyone was it was about 95% of people were going to be spending more in cloud for the rest of the year
Yep.
and moving forward.
Yeah, and I can only speak to conversations that we're having, and it definitely is heavily weighted to more investment on the kind of less investment. I guess it's the more like capex versus opex and those different things. But the 95% is definitely in line with what we're seeing, and the reason why they're investing more for the availability and the scalability of it, looking to reduce costs. I think that was something that was greatly kind of put a highlight on over in 2020. But I was talking about this before. There's a lot of data to be gathered from it and helping you make more decisions quickly on how you want to pivot. A couple of customers that we're working with now on the like test-driven development, how easy it is to to build and test and then tear it down really quickly. And then DevOps is really dominating a lot of the conversations, not just we're doing DevOps and we have some of the tools, but what does it really mean to take advantage of cloud and DevOps and containers, and how can we use that for the automation side of things and faster deployments, releases, continuous delivery. These are all benefits of the cloud, and it necessitates a bit more investment for people to really get the full benefit that comes from that. So then I definitely concur that 95% and pretty much in line with what we saw in the live results as well.
Yeah, I think all that is going to then also help influence the multi-cloud. Like once you
Yep.
get into the whole DevOps way of doing things, containerization that can work across different clouds is going to be valuable. I mean, as it's been
Yep.
shown, Kubernetes has been like the cool kid at the party for a few years now. It doesn't seem to be slowing down. Like it's still people are still as enthusiastic as they were a few years ago, which is.
I would say it comes up, Kubernetes. I mean, just since you brought that up, I would say it comes up, at least 75% of the conversations that we're having. That is definitely something that people, and along with things like Terraform, more the other automation tools as well. So yeah, it's a that's the way things are going at this point.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to survey question number 3 now. So what is your biggest tech concern for 2021 and beyond? We'll give you guys some time to actually read these answers because they're a little bit longer. Okay, great. So as we can see, the number one concern at 47% is cybersecurity and compliance. Coming up behind it is having the right talent to actually reach your goals. And number 3 was transformational activities such as migrations. So why don't we see how that lines up with our results? So basically, the way from our respondees, cybersecurity and compliance was also number 1. Now, it was just ahead of transformational activities. It was like 23% versus 22%. And then having the talent to reach the business objectives just came a bit behind. I believe it was probably like at 18%. I think this is really interesting because one thing that I noticed was when we looked into some of this data, it also depends on what vertical or what industry you're in. So certain industries, like if you're in the consulting world, maybe those respondents show that they are more concerned about transformational activities because it makes sense. They have to go in and really teach people how to use the cloud and help enact a big cloud migration and cloud culture shift at a different org.
Yeah, I would say too on this as well, and it looks like the live results match up pretty well with what we saw in the results from the actual survey. When you take into account the talent part of it to reach the business objectives, it's almost like that. I mean, it really is that is part of all of this. In order to meet cybersecurity and compliance initiatives, to execute on your transformational activities, to keep up with any of the trends, you've got to have the right talent to be able to do that. So as a standalone, the insufficient talent, I think again, it's just one of those that could it could really fit with all of these parts of it, because you've got to have the right people to do that. So I just thought that was a bit of an interesting observation too, as a standalone. But definitely cybersecurity and compliance being areas that come up on a lot of our conversations. The predictability and skills around being able to execute on those transformational activities is something that's coming up quite often as well.
Have you found, so like with security, I mean, with like security and compliance, like how deep, when you're having a conversation with customers, how deep do they go into their problems with that? Or is that something that it's kind of its own world and they're just saying like security, like, okay, it's a big thing, but we're not going to kind of go over all of the nitty gritty with you?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's one of those, it's kind of a sensitive topic, but the majority of people are looking at it as an overarching concept, not too much around their security frameworks and what's built in. But the goal being that they want to have the right training that can actually line up and match to helping them architect a secure environment across their applications, their infrastructure. So it's an overarching conversation. A lot of the maintaining certifications in security are something that people even want or need to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more of that overarching conversation, not necessarily getting too detailed into what they're looking to accomplish. And another thing too is, I mean, 6-7 years ago, the cybersecurity aspect of it, that training was more reactionary. Something happened, there was a breach, something happened, and they had to go, and it was a checkbox, right? We had to go and make sure that we put training in front of people to tick that box and show that we were doing what it took to mitigate any of those risks. But again, it was driven by something bad happening, so it was reactionary. Now it's becoming more of a proactive approach to trying to build something to mitigate those and not be a headline. So seeing that evolve as well has been pretty interesting to look at. And again, there's still the headlines that come up now more than ever, and just kind of the way things are going. But I think that's you're always going to continue to see security dominate the topics of conversation for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there can be real dollar value, dollar implication when there are big problems. And I think it's a good point that you made at the beginning of this question about how the actual tech talent to kind of power all these is kind of at the core of each thing. I mean, everything, as we know, it's cliche, it moves fast, it changes, and so you need the right knowledge, experience, and skills in order to just stay on top.
Yep, exactly.
All right, let's move on to question number 4. So, in general, how would you say you quantify the technical skill levels and employees and your teams right now at your current organization? Okay. This is an interesting breakdown. So about 40% of people either use some sort of internal LMS, and then 40% don't know their exact team's level. And then another 25%, they just kind of speak to their managers and kind of do it the old-fashioned way of talking to people and trying to get kind of a feel for what's going on. Let's compare that to our actual results. I mean, our results were not terribly different. We had 45% who use an LMS compared to 38%.
Yeah, I was looking and looking at this. I found it a bit interesting too on the LMS side of things, and certainly we talked to L&D groups and HR managers responsible for administering the LMS side of things. And I know there's some assessment tools that are built in to those, but largely, the LMS, the conversations that we've had are more like looking and seeing and being able to validate what people are training on. So gathering, the kind of skill levels of people from that, I dig into a little bit more because quantifying that just based on consumption is a bit difficult. So there are some LMSs that I think have different capabilities out there. So it sounds like that could be something, even those on the line of seeing. The majority of conversations that we're having are where it is pretty eye-opening, where it's difficult to know where the skill levels are. People are doing different things. They're getting their their training from different areas, and they're not necessarily kind of condensed. So it's all over the place, especially when there is no internal LMS. So it has been difficult to really ascertain where those skill levels are. And the 15% on the manager's reports of results that are team skills is something that I've definitely heard as well. So Yeah, it's that I think that's something that is, probably keeps, well, from what I've seen, keeps IT leaders up at night, being able to really quantify and know the skill levels, to be able to have that predictability around, here's where we're at, here's where we can be, this is what we can execute on, and really having that comfortability level with it. So yeah, I thought this lined up pretty well with the conversations that we're having.
Yeah, and I think as as the marketing team, basically, as we went through the survey and thought about the data we were seeing, like we kind of saw that we see less than, according to our actual survey results, less than half of the enterprise leaders can produce a concrete understanding of the talent that they have. And notwithstanding what you think you're actually getting out of your LMS for this, but that's a problem if more than half of the people kind of can't really say exactly like where are their people and then where do they need to be. It seems to be kind of a problem for reaching those goals that we talked about on the prior slide.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's, you've got to kind of know where you're starting from to be able to know where you're going and to make the right decisions, for your organization. So that's kind of at the core of where, of that, that skill level is at the core of what you need to, have confidence in to be able to execute on, those business outcomes, those milestones. So yeah, that is you're spot on with that.
So I'd say kudos to the IT leaders who recognize that they have a problem with this. They're obviously acutely aware of this pain. So kind of following up with that, our next question is talking more about the resources that they would need, therefore, to reach these goals. So yeah, question number 5. It's about resources through the end of 2021 and beyond. This is one of these ones with some long answers, so take your time if you need to.
It's probably a good one for select all that apply too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll get into this when we get to the answers. Okay, looks like we've got most of the people who've answered. So this is interesting. The resources that people anticipate needing to get their tech goals through the end of the year and beyond. Number 1 is upskilled employees. So they're same employees. Interestingly, we have 0% for new employees. And then there's a 3-way tie with everything else. So let's pull up our results. Now, so first of all, in our results, you're going to see these numbers aren't going to all add up to 100% because the survey question was one of those ranked responses, like choose these 1 through 5 and rank them what you think is most important. That's why we have the percentage numbers we do. Now, 75% of our respondents said upskilled employees. Which was our leader, which kind of jives with the results that our live attendees just said, which was about 43%. We also had our survey respondents say, in addition to that sort of talent, we're concerned about getting upskilled employees. New employees, which there's probably many reasons about that. Maybe they feel they can only upskill so many, and then they have to kind of reach out and find into a larger pool. I think, but I think the fact that upskilled employees, some of our stats show that the fact that upskilled employees kind of is the leading response. It's just an effect of the effect of it being expensive to hire people, as you can see with some of those stats, and it's competitive right now. Whether if you're a mid-sized enterprise trying to compete with a larger one, it's kind of there seems to be a kind of a dearth of for example, software engineers.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting to see the 0% with the new employees. I think that, again, kind of jives with a lot of the conversations that we're having too. And then the upskilling, there's a lot of benefits to upskilling, employees to the business, again, and executing on your objectives, but two, it increases retention of employees as well when they know they're being invested in. So landing the right talent is obviously great, but being able to keep them there is something that is becoming, I don't want to say a concern, but it is competitive. So companies that we're working with definitely understand that keeping their people skilled up, investing in their career growth inside the organization is not only beneficial to their business and hitting those milestones, but ultimately in retaining those employees and keeping that bench of the skilled staff. The new tools and leadership buy-in, I think you have to have the right people to know what tools to pick, and what tools to suggest to get the leadership buy-in. So again, it's another one of those where I feel like the skilling, the upskilling is really driving a lot of these other things. So if I've got the right people, and I want to get buy-in from leadership to increase our IT budget, to increase which is ultimately going to result in more tools and things like that. I've got to be able to demonstrate that I've got the right people who have done the right research, invested the time to make those decisions. So that's again, it's just a kind of recurring theme of this upskilling being a component that really, drives even, all of these. So I thought that was, again, just another, aspect of it. And again, the example you have over here for the hiring of software developers around, exceeding around 50,000, it's super expensive. And it is competitive, which is going to drive up, salary requirements. But then you talk about onboarding them and putting them through the different things that you have in your organization. That takes a while, a lot of people's time, and then hopefully keeping them around, it could be a significant cost to the organization. So I think what we saw here live on the results is probably, it sounds like we've got a lot of leaders that kind of understand that's the upskilling is where you need to start with, which is a great thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a good point of how you're saying how again, that results, that kind of, not results, that kind of affects and influences kind of your other things. So for example, kind of it's therefore related to the other kind of answers in this question. I think so. Like, I'm coming from the marketing side of things, which is different from you, Mark. But even I've seen, like, when we have case studies and interviews with people, like, by and large, their concerns are for their employees that they have. Like, managers and directors and stuff are definitely concerned. They really care about their employees, and they want to figure out how they can kind of get them skilled quickly, because they know they've got these big issues, these big technical projects that they need to overcome and deploy. And it's faster and kind of better if you can just have the people that you have already.
Yeah, I completely concur. And keeping them there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big deal, and it's really going to help you, stay on track. So yeah, good point.
All right, so we'll get to question number 6. How much do you predict you'll invest in improving tech skills for your teams for this year compared to last year? And it's really for this year and beyond. Okay, I think we've got a pretty full result now. So this seems to be a pretty simple question with a pretty simple answer. Everyone feels they need to make more investment in their tech skills. Basically 80-10-10, and that I would say, sorry to talk over you, Mark, that jives in if that basically matches exactly with our results, like 80-10-10 more or less.
Yeah.
And I mean, we think I would say that's great that management is kind of aware of this. Management sees the need to kind of keep up skills to development in order to just keep up with everything that's evolving and stay competitive.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's just not to continue to belabor the point, but I think more and more the conversations that we're having, leaders are really understanding, from C-suite down, how important it is to invest in their people and their skills, which is going to drive every other aspect of, successful journey in the cloud. So I kudos to those on that see the need for that and are really investing in their people. I think it's going to pay off. We do, focus groups with some of, end users as well, and, with our customers. And that is always one of the things that, they want to see that their companies are investing in them. And I think that's phenomenal that you're recognizing that. So well done.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So this is kind of now going to go into that basically concludes our actual survey question part of this webinar. Now we'll move on to what we kind of thought are the takeaways for organizations. Basically, the business impact from this. So, I mean, as we can see, I mean, I don't have to read this because you guys have it in front of you, but it's kind of something that Mark has been kind of painting a connection through with all these kind of survey questions. Like we have all these initiatives. Companies have all these initiatives. Everything is changing, everything is fast, and everything is complicated. And people are recognizing the need to have the right employees with the right skills in order to keep a high functioning team. But that's hard to do. It's a challenge. It doesn't matter if you're a medium or a large size organization. Everything is competitive right now. And so I think just being aware that kind of it seems to be, according to the results of the survey, basically your peers are feeling that pinch just like you might be feeling that right now.
Yeah, I don't think this is as in kind of indicated in the live survey here, and then also obviously the results. It's something that a lot of companies are in the same boat. And again, investing in the people is going to drive ultimately, I think, that successful journey in the cloud, and it's going to help you to have that predictability when you know where the skills are, the right skills to stay competitive. So overarching, I thought it was great to kind of see the survey line up with the conversations that we're having, and I always enjoy talking about that and helping find some creative ways to not just provide something to just skill people up across, it's across all different areas, but they can get super focused and honed in on their job role and build those out. So I think this has just been really encouraging and exciting to see it line up with those types of conversations that we've been having. And I appreciate everyone that participated in the survey, not just the one that we did and sent out back through April, May, but also online here as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the Q&A section of this webinar. That means we are nearing the end of it. As it happens, our Q&A kind of list is a little bit empty right now. So why don't, Mark, I just pick your brain a couple times, and then we can call it a day with this conversation.
Okay.
So I was wondering, do you is there anything that stands out kind of recently, maybe between kind of big problems or that bigger problems that maybe a very big organization, maybe like 1,000 or more employees, is having as in their conversations with you versus maybe someone that is maybe a little bit smaller?
That's a good question, and I mean, obviously, bigger organizations are gonna the problems I think are similar. The severity or the kind of
Mm,
the scope of them can be bigger, right, based on the size of the organization. Not understanding where skills lie in an IT group of 10 is concerning, but not understanding that with a group of IT people around 1,000 is going to be exacerbated for sure. I think the trends, the conversations around upskilling, those are very similar. I think that it should be encouraging to, no matter the size of your organization, to know that others are in the same boat. I think what people are struggling with is kind of holistically putting programs together that not only achieve the goals that they have, but also keep their employees engaged, keep them coming back to the well for more, going outside of the box a bit. And that's just this huge conglomeration of all these different things people have inside their organization with no real standardization on who's training on what. It's been I think one of the more difficult those are the challenges that I think have been more difficult for leaders of all organizations to maintain. But again, the higher number of count that's reaching out to, I think it's just exacerbated that much more.
that makes more sense. I think that's a good kind of, like from my end, it sounds like, oh, that's so simple, but like I think you have to go through it and talk to a bunch of people to kind of then see like it's a simple thing that's actually happening. It's just on a much larger scale. Do you think so with these organizations that are having success, who you maybe have had conversations with continually over the years, is it, what can you are there any common threads that you've seen? Like, is it usually a small group? Are there a couple of like enlightened advocates of the group who just say like, who you that manage to kind of say this is the way, and then there's a buy-in? And do those people tend to be from a certain department, or can it run the gamut?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think it feeds back to one of the survey questions where one of the answers was buy-in from leadership. That's
Hmm.
that's really where it all starts. And again, the reactionary component of it, something driving, the solution at that point is not where you want to be. Ultimately, having the right people to help drive that buy-in does sit sometimes within certain groups, but I've also seen these types of things be identified, at an L&D level or an HR group that are driving some of these upskilling, because again, on the front lines of retention, your L&D, your HR groups are going to want to see employees retained. So I think that from a top-down approach, that where we've seen organizations successful is where they've gone and made that right business case to leaders to buy in, and that is really what's driven. That's really where the predictability comes in. Predictability makes people comfortable. Predictability makes people feel confident
Hmm.
in knowing that I've got the right people. I can go to my boss and say, I feel confident that we can execute on migrating these apps by the end of 2021. Um, you know, I can confidently say that because I've got the predictability. I know where they're at now, and I know where they're going to be. That's things that I think help people have a little bit of peace, right? There's tons of other things that you have to worry about. Knowing where people stand from a skill level is one that I think can be easily mitigated, and one that I think is going to help drive that leadership buy-in on all those other decisions on IT spend, new tools, and things like that.
Great, thanks, Mark. I think that's some really helpful insight. Um, so I'd say that is going to conclude this webinar about our Tech Leader Survey. I just wanted to say on behalf of Mark, thank you very much for attending. When this webinar ends, there's going to be a short survey on your experience with it. So we would love it if you could just give us your thoughts, so as we plan moving forward on some more webinars and content for you. So once again, so thank you. It was a real pleasure to just chat about this with you guys. And Mark, thanks for taking the time to just share your real world experience with our attendees.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Hopefully, we can speak soon. Everyone, take care.
All right, thank you. Have a good day, everybody.